All right, we're back we're not in the Bunker Bar, but we're back online here for another episode of the Bunker Project.
All right.
Maven, here with my co-host, Bob Garlick.
Hello. What do you think of these shades? It's not really my style.
And a bunch of Bunker Mavens.
Yeah. The gang is back.
Let's kick it off with the usual bunker question.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do a round table or square table?
Yeah. And so this time, let's start it off because we're doing humanoid robots, basically, humanoid AI. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a good show, but they were debating whether or not the optimum kind of form factor of a robot is in humanoid form or in some kind of a specialized form. Like, for example, like a forklift. You could have a humanoid robot driving a forklift, or the forklift could be the robot itself, right? Mm-hmm. Or it could be like a spider or an octopus or something like that. So the question is, should robots be in humanoid form or something more specialized for specific tasks? Right. I'm kind of firmly in the humanoid camp, and I know Bob's on the other side.
Well, I'm not in that. I mean, when we were talking about this, I just brought in, Bauhaus and form follows function and function follows form. And that's that's the argument here, right? It's like, do you have a robot that looks like a human so people don't get paranoid about it? Or do you have a robot device that can think and be autonomous and do its own thing you don't have to think about? So those are the two extremes, I think. And that's why you see arms and legs on robots right now.
I think generalized forms, humanoids are really good for a generalized form, but we don't have 360-degree vision because our eyes are on the front of our head. We're predators. I've got a crap shoulder from using a mouse, from just stretching my arm out and doing this, and the actual just fulcrum effect has destroyed a nerve in my shoulder. So it's not an optimum form, but if it was to do general things, get a general robot in to do something, humanoid form is great. But if you need surgery, you want lots of little things to do something. If you want to fly, it's got to have wings or blades or something, some anti-gravity device, So, but generalized, I'm still surprised we have firefighters and soldiers, really. I mean, it costs like $4 million to train a soldier. It costs $3 million to build ASIMO. Give the sucker
well, not even that. It could be even cheaper than that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be $4 million either. The markup is just there because it's for a militarized purpose, and that's the level they set for that stuff. My Roomba would be a good soldier for sure if I put like something on it, right? And I got that for $300.
Well, I guess there's we're in the age of the drones, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Ukraine war is turning more on its head, really. Because of all the technology they're using over there, and they're destroying $25 million tanks with a $2,000 drone.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
That kind of goes back to the question, though, is like factor over function, right?
I think both are necessary. If you want a robot that deals with humans, make it humanoid. If you need function. But it's just a comfort value, just the comfort of it all.
Well, I think that's
people might be more uncomfortable with something that looks like them and is totally autonomous. But for function, just make it what it needs to be.
Like we grew up with like the Jetsons and Rosie the Robot and these sort of things. And I think it's because we don't trust robots like Terminator 2 or Isaac Asimov's book, those sort of things. And so I thought it was a great idea when you guys were like, yeah, the forklift could be the robot. Why don't we have like a giant ass gorilla construction robot?
Yeah, they can elevate.
Yeah, but the hard part is transporting it, right? Like, whoa, we've got the window washer now, but it's a giant gorilla.
I think a lot of it is based on the limitations of technology and materials that are available now.
Craig make it crazy.
But I mean, the whole thing is it's an evolving new conceptual idea that the general public, which has a cognitive awareness of a 2-year-old, it takes a long time for them to kind of get their head around it and not misuse it. So, I mean, we already have super realistic robotic women who have special functionality. They're very popular and they sell a lot of
you
them.
watched the
But
video.
that is not the usage for robotics in a long-term sense. But we still have to go through these phases. I mean, the internet, the first people that made money were the people that started processing porn and putting it on the internet, right? That was the first monetization, really.
Exactly.
Except for the military contracts for developing it. But, other than that, it's
also video was a very big part of the internet and that industry as well. Like we wouldn't have multicam Zoom calls or even what we're using now without that part of humanity.
Well, there was a lot of innovation in that space, but just to close off the robot humanoid versus specialized form, my take on it is I wouldn't want a lawnmower that's a robot.
Yeah, dude, lawnmower man.
And a specialized dishwasher robot and mechanic robot. When I have all these tools, I already have a lawnmower. I already have a dishwasher.
So you need a delicate, is what you're saying?
So just one $30,000 figure
like
robot or Tesla bot. Yeah. And
so you have a multifunction.
It can do everything. It can do everything. So, of course, in a factory or in a you'd start getting into the more specialized stuff, going into fabrication and surgeries and things like that. But for day-to-day use, like robots in the home or robots in a warehouse kind of thing, I think that a humanoid form is the best option because a robot in that form is going to be the quickest to market at the highest scale, lowest cost.
Hey, by the way, what's the definition of a robot? Right? Because an android is a human or somebody with that specifically doesn't have that special attachments, and then you attach them to it. And I think there was this guy in the States
complete the Turing test. I think that's the basic one.
Well, that's AI. That's just AI.
Well, but it's also a test of if a computer has
intelligence.
Right. I mean, so that's not the definition of a cyborg, right?
Well, not even intelligence. It's consciousness.
Yeah.
Turing test is consciousness.
So if we start with the idea of a tool, that's something a human can use to get a job done more efficiently. If we say a robot is something that does a job, maybe without human interaction.
Yeah, well,
but we can go AI to give it intelligence to make it think.
But the problem is with AI, it's so dumb right now that it's like I try to use it every day and I do lots of amazing stuff, but sometimes I ask it to do super simple things and it completely crashes. And it's because the way AI builds stuff is insanely inefficient. And I mean, it's insane. Like
it's only as good as what it's been trained on. And so like what depends on what you're trying to do with it and how you talk to it.
Well, if you ask AI to create an Excel spreadsheet for you, it doesn't create an Excel spreadsheet. It develops a completely new way of doing spreadsheets and then does it that way. It's insane.
Were you using Copilot? Which one were you using?
No, I just use ChatGPT.
Okay, so if I was doing Excel, I would use Copilot because that's assigned to do inside of Excel.
Oh, exactly. But my thing is, I'm trying to see what the limitations of ChatGPT is.
Oh, yeah. I got it to make me an infographic the other day. It fucking took half an hour, but it did it. And but the response it gave me was only like a minute. So it wasn't the best use of computing power of my time, probably.
Yeah. I've been using Qwen recently, and it's great for setting up tables and numbers and sourcing that kind of analysis. A friend is using it for investments, and she just drops a ton of data in there and then asks 3 questions, fill it all in, and it comes back with all the information. It analyzes everything. It gives you reason for this, reason for that, what's high risk, what's not. This is the projection, why it's a projection, and why it's projecting. It does a lot of work.
Yeah, but it's purpose driven, right? It only does that special niche, and that's I think the thing with AI. You have these generalist AI that are really frustrating to use, but out of that concept, people are saying, "Well, how about I can take the AI concept and I can just get it to this very wafer thin special thing." And that's kind of what robotics is going to be about, right? It's they have robotics, which is these arms that weld cars, yada, yada, yada. And countries are investing billions or trillions of dollars into developing factories and all that, because if they don't, they won't be functional. They won't be able to make money in the future. But they're very specialized thing. And you have a guy that comes in and programs the arm to do a certain amount of movements, and then you have a safety zone because the thing is so dumb, it'll kill you. It's like, sorry, I was trying to weld a car through this guy, but it's his fault because he was in the way. No, it's so primitive right now, all the stuff we're doing. So I think a lot of it is creative thinking and looking at how we can utilize it as a tool and see what the limitations are. Because unless you find it where it breaks, then you don't know what to fix. So that I think that's the stage we're at with AI and robotics.
There is a coffee shop out here that they use when you order coffee, you go and sit down, and it has a robot that delivers it to your table.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 3 or 4 little platforms, and you put the thing, the server puts the number in, and away it goes, and it hits the table, and you pull it off, and then you hit return, and off it goes. It still amazes me to see this, just because it's just an everyday setting.
Well, how do you tip a robot? That's my question. Do you like just a power pack?
You don't tip the robot. It's supposed to take out the labor costs, which means that everything goes back to a decent price.
Yeah, I like Craig's answer. Just give it a push. It'll tip over.
Yeah, a robot is a programmable machine designed to perform tasks automatically, often in a physical environment. That is the definition.
Sounds like Craig.
So basically what Ken just said, it's doing its job and it does it. Yeah. But there's also robots that they're using in Japan where somebody who's sick or something like that can actually be waitressing there, which can be another type of job, which is kind of weird. Could you imagine that? You're not limited by your physical abilities anymore because you're piloting a humanoid suit. Is that what we said earlier?
You mean they're remotely from home?
Yeah, but these are like little tray robots that they go, and then the other robot puts all the food on it, and then they drive it to the thing, and they're watching out for people. And like you said,
what about augmentation? Like, so we're talking AI and robots, but let's say we don't let AI do the philosophical and cognitive thinking, but we allow the AI to drive an augmentation. Because when you were saying that, helping you at home, imagine my next door neighbour passed away a few years ago now from motor neuron disease. And as he was losing his arms, he was losing his legs, he was getting more disabled. If he could have had something at that time that maybe he wore it and it gave him the ability to move.
Exoskeleton suit. Yeah, we have.
Yes, and move his arms. And it gave the smarts enough that I'm not going to squash that, I'm not going to do that. I know how to get around people. But he did the cognitive stuff, like, let's go to the lounge room. And it could take him to the lounge room. It knew the layout of his house that did that. Is that going to be a robot? Is it going to be like this co-op?
I would think that would be like a hybrid. Yeah, that's like more Total Recall kind of style.
Well, it's a very, very fancy wheelchair or functional chair, right?
We already have those. We have those wheelchairs. I got hit by lots of them when I was on the cruise ship.
Oh, the little scooters. Those
scooters, man.
Those are vehicles, right?
Yeah, Craig's in Australia, in case anybody doesn't know, but they had a lady on that had a bionic arm. Mm-hmm. And like she could control the hand walking across the screen, or well, not the screen, my screen, but the table in front of her. Sorry, but
it wasn't even connected to her. She took it off the show.
It was incredible.
Yeah, that was just I saw that.
It was on the coffee table, and she goes, "I can do it Bluetooth." And as she's talking, it's walking across the coffee table. And he's like,
same as Thing. It's just
it is like, or maybe Cousin It was actually just a bionic hand from the uncle that lived downstairs that just didn't want to come deal with anybody's shit. But
it is, and the thing that I think AI does have a bit of, which for me AI is like massively complex machine learning. Its matrix is just enormous. It has a bit of a feedback loop in of itself, and that's we've been teaching AI for years with those. What's a bus? Tell me all the ones that are David Gilmour, not a baldy old man or whatever, right? You were teaching it recognition, and when it gives you an answer now, it says, "How did I do? Yes or no? Do it again."
Some people don't know that you can do that.
Yeah,
they don't know if you can give it a yay or nay. All right, yeah, fucking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anya,
Swipe
yeah.
right, swipe left.
But people also don't understand there's reasoning models and then there's task models of AI too, right? So you can actually ask it to show you its thought process, what it's trying to come up with, how it's kind of getting the information.
Yeah, and you
but
can ask it what it remembers too.
Well, yeah, the Chat GPT just turned on the, hey, you can remember everything we've talked about, and holy shit, the stuff it's learned about me, I'm just like, wow.
So
It's very task oriented.
do you use ChatGPT
I use all of them
through voice or just text?
I use Copilot through voice. I usually use that when I'm teaching my students about AI to how to talk to it, because a lot of them have hand or wrist issues, maybe shoulders, back pain, things like that. And it works pretty good for some of the questions. Sometimes it does not know, but that's because it's about the information that's been trained up till. And not like the current events. Like you could go ask it who's the Prime Minister of Canada, but it always has to cite it because it doesn't know that. It hasn't fed that information.
Yeah, I think it was 2024 when they cut it off.
Or whatever model. Yeah, like these models are coming out quicker and quicker and quicker. We have no idea where they're scraping from. Right? Everywhere. Like the whole Studio Ghibli thing that happened like less than a month ago where everybody was all of a sudden able to do that sort of imitation style. Everybody has their own action figure now.
Yeah, right? But that's just mimicry more than anything else. There's no creativity.
That's what it is. That's what AI is. It's a big parrot that just burp. It only knows what it knows, but it doesn't actually know the actual thing, right? Like you could say, make me an example of a hockey game. Well, until we feed it lots and lots of video of hockey, it only knows what it is. It's similar to the watch problem. When you ask it to make you a clock, it always points to 10:10 because that was the time that they were always photographing watches that looked the best.
As I said, that's a big issue to where it's scraping from, because I do a lot of screenwriting these days, and that's the WGA, Writers Guild of America, has pushed that AI shouldn't be used in the creative side of any screenwriting. And the reason is that, okay, it scrapes. It can't write, like you said, it doesn't know what a screenplay is. It has no idea. So it goes and learns by grabbing hold of everybody else's screenplays, which is copyrighted material. It comes back, it learns off that. So it hasn't breached copyright. You tell it to write a scene, it writes a scene for you. You are then monetizing something, right?
Yeah.
It didn't breach the copyright because it's stolen from everyone, not just you. It stole from everybody, and it's now monetizing it. And there's no flow back to the original copyright holders.
See, this is a classic misrepresentation of what AI actually is. And this is what blew my mind because I just learned this. If AI is going to write a screenplay, it doesn't say, I'm going to source 10,000 plays and then steal little pieces of it. Basically what it does is it looks at millions of plays and looks at patterns that plays have and story arcs.
But our stories are the same way too. Usually when you're telling a story to somebody, we have a structure that we've
right. But when you go to school, it's the same thing. Should I, when I went to university, have to play the professor for the rest of my life because he taught me the skills that make me money? That's the argument. And that's why you cannot attack it on that level. It'll just screw everything up. I think when I look at it is, you use AI as a tool to do grunt work and stuff that's a waste of your time. And on a creative level, I'm talking right as a writer. And then you go in and you fix it because what it writes is okay, but it could be so much better. And it's the difference between working on a blank page and trying to, the famous things like, how do you write? Well, you look at a blank page until your eyes bleed and you still don't start. But if you're given a script, it's really easy to be critical. No, that's wrong. We do it this way and that way. Well, AI can't do that. It can, but not to the level and the speed that we can. So it sets you like, boom, here's an idea, scenario. You say, great, but I don't like this. Let's change that. Well, then you're art directing at that point. So I think
vibe coding.
The Academy Awards just came out with their official stance on AI content, and they said, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's an academy. But there is the idea of derivative work. There's the idea of derivative work. That if you've taken something, and no matter how much you've changed it, if it's come from something, it still has to be, something has to flow back to the creator. If you're learning a skill, that's great. But remember, we're also intelligent. We've all just agreed a machine is not intelligent. So it is. It can't create a brand new
I think it's pretty smart. I will go on the
It's
side
a
of
very good.
for our
My
future
parents- my
robot
job's really smart
overlords.
too, but it's not-
I'm okay with you guys. Don't kill me first.
I think that that it's not actually necessarily the same thing as me doing a cover song of Def Leppard, and then they get royalty because they wrote the song. If I like Def Leppard and which I do, and then I'm inspired by Def Leppard and I do something in the similar style but different, then I don't know anybody of royalty, right? So isn't that what AI is doing?
For the most part, though, I mean, we've been doing that all along. I mean, Smoke on the Water, that classic riff is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in reverse. The notes are reversed.
What?
It's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Mm-hmm.
And da 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 da, and Smoke on the Water is just the reverse of that. So, I mean, it's finding inspiration more than anything. And that inspiration, okay, I can take it from here. Now I've got something, as Bob was saying, I've got something to work with now. Now I can take it from here and use my own creativity to enhance what I've already got.
Bob said this
that's art direction.
Yeah, he said this a long time ago. You put junk in, you get junk out. Right? That's where it becomes how you interact with it and what you're trying to do with it. You could try to recreate any story word for word, and people will be like, I've seen this before. What's your take on it? And hopefully,
please write me a story about the South, Georgia, in the style of Tennessee Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
and you read it, and it reads like Tennessee Williams, and it feels like a Tennessee Williams play.
Yeah.
Tennessee Williams. Like
no, but see, that's where you're wrong. That what you're doing is you're corrupting a tool to do something that's immoral. So if you're going, you say, okay, so I want to do something that has a vibe that's kind of like the 1720s, and there was, this movement, and these tall hats were cool. Do a little bit more research on that and come back. And I want a zippy little cool tune using just the tools that were available for musicians at that time. Get back to me and see what you got. And then it'll come back with something very strange, but then you tweak it from there. That's it's like going to, in an art studio, go to an artist and say, hey, just sketch up a concept or whatever based on these things. What they bring back to you isn't what you've imagined, but you take it and you pitch that to the client, and the client says, great, but can we change these things? And you say, yeah, fine, no problem. And then you take from prototype and you make a final product. And, that's what advertising agencies and design firms do. I think what Craig's getting at is a design agency that goes out, looks in Vogue magazine and say, oh, this is great, rips it, changes a little bit, but basically 90% of the copywriting is the same and the model's the same, looks the same, and then they put it up against Vogue. And basically then what you're doing is you're stealing the intellectual property of the trademark of Vogue, because people say, oh, this must be a good product because it has the same vibe and feeling as Vogue. It's very gray area. So it's very, very difficult. That's what copyright's so difficult to litigate, is there's all these if it does this, then it's not copyrighted. But if it does that, it is copyrighted. And it's a very hard thing to argue, and it's an extremely hard thing to defend. And I think that's why there's so many unfair cases regarding copyright, where it's obvious that the piece was a ripped off photograph with some weird stuff put on it, and say, no, it's an original piece. So in Canada, the definition of copyright isn't changing it by 30%. It's changing the emotional value or what it communicates on it in an emotional way. That's how you define copyright differences in Canada, instead of I changed it 30%. And that's other places, that's what you have to do.
No, I actually like that it has to change the emotional content. There is a court case at the moment that I think it's in the US that talks about things can only be. They're not saying we can't. Things can only be copyrighted if it's a unique artistic expression by a person.
Exactly.
Their AI is not a person, therefore anything you produce from AI can't be copyrighted.
Yeah, it's
therefore,
not.
It's got no commercial value.
No.
So studios aren't going to use it.
But then
Well,
Because if
okay,
they have
no,
something
no,
that they
okay.
can't be
then you have
copyrighted, then
to
I
define
totally
it.
agree. I totally agree, Greg. But, and I agree, anything that's made with AI is uncopyrightable. I totally believe that's what it is. Because using machine as part of the creative process, and anybody can use a machine and, hey, look, they made something the same as what you did or close to. It'll always be close. It'll never be the same. So what's the difference between that and using a bunch of musicians to create something, and then those same musicians work with a different guy and create something very similar? Is that copyright infringement of your original way of using that band? Or has the band taken, hey, that's kind of a cool thing that we did with Craig, let's go sell that with a bunch of other people?
Well, I can speak to that because I actually had to sign an NDA when I worked on a game where I was not allowed to compete in that particular genre for 5 years. It was unenforceable, but I didn't know it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, hey, if you worked on us for this, you can't go over to Jerry's milk factory and make, the same thing.
Yep.
But there is a fair few little court cases at the moment. I Was Made for Loving You, the Kiss song, was written by a guy called Desmond Child. That riff appears in a Miley Cyrus song, but in the background, that do 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 off the court.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And George Harrison is nothing. My Sweet Lord. You have to really sit beside that and the rondelles and go, yeah, I can hear the riff similar, but there's no way this Hare Krishna guy from England was ripping off the rondelles. So those cases do happen.
Yeah, there's actually a fair... Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, but if you can't get copyright granted on something generated by a machine, studios, like from my point of view, movie studios won't use it because they go, well, we can't protect this. Someone go, I make red SSD drive superhero first movie, and someone goes, oh, that was AI generated. Cool, I'll make the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't own the copyright.
We have a huge problem.
Copyrighted protect screenwriters.
So it's essentially like open source, basically, right?
Yes.
Open source software.
And no studio is going to use an open source character.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you end up with like the 20 Sherlock Holmes films that are being made all the time because he's in the public domain now.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the advertising industry. If you're representing, a brand comes to you and say, we want you to, make us whatever, and you do it, but you do it in a way that's non-copyrightable, they don't want to talk to you about it. Because then it doesn't benefit them in a way they cannot defend it in a court of law, all those type of things. Now, if you're in Asia and it happens, slightly different situation, right? Because things are a little bit gray there for most things. And I just found out the other day, actually, if you're in a court of law in China and you win, the judge has to go pick up the money and bring it to you.
Wow.
Yeah. And how many times does it's like, oh, yeah, they didn't have enough money, so, here's $10,000 instead of the $300,000. And he walks away with the rest of the money in his pocket, right? I'm just saying that might happen. Right? But, there's, we're talking about the world when you talk about like copyright. And I think what's happened is like 40, 50, 60 years ago, you could do your own thing in Vancouver or Sydney, and you were kind of protected by the inability to broadcast without spending millions and millions of dollars.
One thing real quick, we're talking about open source. And I've been reading lately, there's a chip that China's putting together, the RISC-V chip. And this chip is open source. It's already out on the internet. And it's being further and further developed, just like Android phones, Android operating system. But it's going to be developed further and further. So chip manufacturers could be in a bit of trouble with this, because with an open source chip, you can't ban it. It's out on the internet, and people can make it as much as they want and they need to. So
isn't that like the goal, though?
That is like I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, but that's why Apple and Google fight all the time.
Yeah.
Because they don't. They have the ecosystems. They have the power. If this was ever to come out, like, that would change telecommunications pretty much.
Yeah, it would. It would. And DeepSeek is using it now. Yeah, anybody can alter it and build for it. And like I said,
if you've got the equipment,
DeepSeek is using it right now
for the knowledge.
For the knowledge.
Yeah, Greg, you had something.
I was thinking about copyright. I sound like a copyright Nazi. I know that. But copyright was originally implemented to actually get it into the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Because people would get hold of something and then hold it for generations.
Yeah.
And say, no,
that's why Frank Sinatra passed down his collection to his family.
Yeah.
It's about
So when they
ownership
introduced
of anything.
copyright, they said, okay, you can have it for 50 years. So for your lifetime, but your kids can't live off the royalties forever.
Yep.
So copyright was actually implemented originally to actually get things into the public domain.
Well, yeah,
70 years
it's a
is what it is
classic
in Canada.
It's a classic problem that if somebody hoards something like wealth or ideas or copyrighted functionality of specific machines, then nobody else in the market can utilize it and make profit from it, which stifles that industry. And if you do that too much, you destroy the industry because somebody comes up with a totally new way of doing it that circumnavigates you, and suddenly that whole industry collapses. So that's the negative side. There's actually, just to keep going on that, there's a very, very interesting part of a science fiction book that I was reading many years ago. And that's what they were talking about. It was like these hugely intelligent AI, almost God level. And that's what they were discussing. These specific arguments and discussions we're having today is like, what is copyright? And, we shouldn't be doing that because it's going to infringe on the ability for expansion of conceptual thinking. And that's what their big concern was. And will we go to galactic war to defend this statement? I mean, it's pretty hardcore sci-fi, but basically the writer was using that as a forum to talk about stuff that actually is totally relevant today, is how much can you hoard? I mean, one of the big things that major agencies do, well, they'll go to writers and say, hey, look, we'll give you $50,000 US. Now, this is like 20 years ago, but for the rights to your book, including the characters, which means that they own that, and the writer that invented those characters can never use those characters again, depending on the contract. But let's say he decides to sign something really stupid. That's it. He'll have to invent something new and start another book and start from scratch, which is very, very hard to do. But some people don't realize that. And the studio may never use it, but they still own it. So this is in conflict with our plans in 5 years. So we're just going to put it over here.
Or they have something similar and they just want to park it.
Well, exactly. That's right. You put
right?
it there.
Because like that's happened to friends of mine too, where they've created something cool and then they're like, yeah, totally, we'll get it for you. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to park that brand because we actually were going to release this in 4 months and you're going to decimate us. We'd rather our project succeed than that. Like there's many stories of that happening in Hollywood and other.
Well, everywhere. I mean, it's
also
a standard business strategy.
There's also authors that have done 17 books with the same character. They're getting tired of it. They don't want to write it anymore, and they can just sell the whole package all at once.
Yeah, and plus they get way more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, should we get back onto topic again and talk a little bit about robotics? And the thing I want to bring up is comfort robots. I started looking into this. It's so weird, but you can get pussycats and these just like seals, and they're being developed and used for people with dementia, people that are super lonely and are struggling with society and can't go out there, blah, blah, blah. These creatures are programmed to kind of become their friend. It looked pretty primitive, but I could definitely see that developing if the market opened up. You could get some pretty wild little, like your cat that runs around. And I think it has a huge market potential because the one wonderful thing about having a dog or a cat is like you're getting this pure love and emotion that is very almost impossible to reproduce. But there's a lot of maintenance. So the trade-off is, hey, I'm going to go on vacation, so I'm just going to turn puppy off and go on vacation, not feel guilty, and come back and turn it back on.
They have robots that you can get to babysit your dog, though, and you can watch it on a camera and give it treats, and you can even develop its own Spotify playlist for
That's
it.
a Samsung robot.
That's like, It's,
do they have robots to take care of your robot dog?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's always been the theory of space travel, though, right? Like that's one of the ways that they say that we're going to explore the universe is that we have to get these robots that can replicate them on whatever planet we send them to. So, that's not entirely not out of range there, Ken, that there may be a robot to take care of your robot because you're too busy on your robot horse riding around the mountains, searching for raiders.
Who are also robots.
We're also robots.
Exactly.
And the blue robots are against the red robots. And
well, you know what? James, it would make a great new thing in the gaming industry where you go out to like the Mojave Desert and there's a bunch of robots there. And
there's a game right now that just released yesterday called Ark that is about this sort of thing. Like humanity has to go below ground and you have to go be a scavenger above and fight giant robots. They're trying to kill you. So.
Right. But I mean, I'm saying you go there and there is an underground physical thing that you physically have to go into. And there are robots running around trying to kill you, but don't, as the next evolution in gaming. Right.
Laser tag?
It's a very
probably going to happen. I don't want to do it. That, the kind of legal concerns you'd have to be like, the robot's going to chase you down this hallway and it's like
crush
500 pounds and it crushes somebody.
Yeah, exactly. But if our medical system gets better, then no problem.
Yeah, right.
The medical system will be robots too.
Yeah, well,
I mentioned something in the chat during. Sorry.
Yeah, Craig.
Something in the chat during the week, and James goes, "I want to hear that story."
Oh yeah, your robot the
oh yeah,
because I have a
shark cleaner. A very very sophisticated vacuum robot.
Mm-hmm.
And poor old Kingston, his big standard poodle, who's now passed away, wasn't very well towards the end of life. And Kingston's downstairs asleep, and he's done a very runny bowel motion, right? But the robot's gone over it with little things like sprayed it.
Oh, nice.
This little smart goes, oh, that's a really dirty spot. I should go back and forth
on it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this is why I said I wanted the one with the mop now. I didn't get the one with the mop, but I think it's like
it's just marinated across his back room.
Like, nicely done.
Gross.
Man,
the poor old dog's in the corner going,
it's not me, man. It's not me.
Don't rub my nose in it. I didn't do it.
Yeah. Was it carpet?
No, it's tile, luckily.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, that would be so gross to clean that up.
Made it spread worse.
We should make it more socially acceptable to talk about the inconveniences our robot vacuums have done to us.
It's just
so everybody knows. It's like, okay, if you have something that's really wet, don't keep it on the floor because it'll just go over top of it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was looking at some very interesting use of Roomba where the guy made tanks and put little pussycats in. Have you seen those ones? And the Roomba's going around. He's put this cardboard tank.
Roomba,
the cat's sitting in there, and it looks so cool, man. So why can't they make a man-sized version of it, right? And you could go in and bump into each other and throw eggs.
Where do you guys see the automated cars?
Don't they have those already?
Well,
with automated cars.
So it's like Tesla self-driving car kind of became the Tesla bot because Elon Musk says that the Tesla car is basically a self-driving robot in car form, and they just took the chips and the hardware over and created a Tesla bot in humanoid form. I am in favor of it, but I'd still a little bit concerned about hacking and things like that. That's
we have robot trains in Sydney.
Yes, driving trains. Yeah, they're very
They're fairly common in Europe too, and the SkyTrain is
a hybrid, probably.
Yeah, but if you look at the actual,
it doesn't have to go anywhere; it just goes in straight lines, right?
That's the issue with it.
Yeah.
There should be like a basic driver's license where it's like, okay, you need this thing to drive you around because you're an idiot. And then you can apply for an advanced one where if you are able to, because I just got my license for pyrotechnician here in Canada, which requires a lot of standards and testing in order to get that. So why wouldn't that be an option, right? I can safely operate a motor vehicle to this degree. I mean, then it's like up to your insurance agency to be like, well, how much do I trust this person?
Yeah,
they got the red
Facebook side. You gotta be kidding me.
Tesla had that real-time insurance.
What?
So so you could sign up for insurance, and the insurance was in real time, so you could see your rates on the screen.
Oh fuck! I'm in the sketchy neighborhood. I gotta get out of here.
You can see your rates going up. And then, or if you slam on the brakes too hard, your rates.
That Bob Karlik in front of me, I'm going to run that bastard off the road.
That really does encourage safer driving because you can see it coming out of your pocket every time.
That's fucked.
Well, that's what affects humans when it hits you.
We can throw cargo in front, so we cancelled your insurance.
Exactly.
Oh my God! I've detected Andrew McGovern is within a 500 feet radius. All of a sudden, everybody's insurance goes up by 20 grand.
I'm actually surprised that James doesn't like self-driving cars because that's more time for him to game.
Oh, I see
Oh,
what you did
thinking in
there.
gaming,
I
yeah.
see what you did there.
Actually,
Coming to my gaming
Audi has been buying rights for films for cars.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it makes sense.
Because
Craig,
I suppose they're thinking, well, we can make a taxi that has entertainment in it, and if we have exclusive rights to all the Marvel movies, no other taxi can have our entertainment in it.
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
So broadcast
Uber, Uber will then use our cars.
I mean, I've been waiting
that
for
was
that to
also
happen.
Uber's thing. Uber said drivers are only a transitional thing. Once we have self-driving
Of
cars,
course, there'll be advertising, right? Advertising in the vehicles.
Craig, I'm wondering if Australia is getting any of the Chinese EVs, like BYD.
Oh God, they're amazing, man.
Yeah, these
They're
cars
inexpensive, right?
next level. Tesla's
our cars have always been a little bit expensive because we used to have a local car industry. They removed the tariffs and everything, so Holden and Ford closed down immediately. And we got heaps of cars from Asia, like BYD from China and Haval from India, and we've got all these cars now, and Volvo's everywhere. But the car companies aren't stupid. They're like, "What, you're used to paying $80,000 for a car? Guess what a car costs? $80,000."
Yeah, exactly.
We're keeping the tariff. Thanks very much. But they're really cheap to lease. Like Teslas are like a leaf litter in my suburb because they're just so cheap to lease because they don't have to pay for the petrol. They plug it into and we're the biggest user of rooftop solar in the world, Australians. I've got 10 kilowatts on my roof. Like, so, and a battery. You just plug your car in at night. It's charged for free. You drive around. Like, so electric cars are really popular.
And if you don't have any solar, you just go out and grab a kangaroo and put that through the shredder, and then that converts into fuel also for the vehicle,
and very good for your suspension as well.
Charging stations, that's how supermarkets compete here. They'll give free charging stations.
I think you're kidding, James. Are you really?
What? I was just all of a sudden thinking about how awesome kangaroo meat must be. Do you guys eat kangaroo in Australia? Yeah, because they're like rats, right? They're just everywhere.
They are, and it's super lean. It is super
really?
I'm calling it.
It's like bison.
Food of the future is kangaroo.
Yeah. Kangaroo.
It's like all the gym junkies are like, "Oh yeah, you got to have kangaroo in your salad." Yeah.
Emu was huge here in Canada. Like when ostriches started being able to be used on farms and stuff like that, people were like, "Oh, it's so good, it's so lean," and they would like smack you in the head with it. Bam. They were not fun to try to take care of.
Yeah, but getting a dozen eggs, that's just you throw your back out.
Big, they're huge.
I know. Imagine backpacking. I get 12 eggs for the next month.
Yeah, so I killed this bird with a really skinny neck, and it had this big thing. We should all eat it. Sure, Bill, you go eat some of that, and in half an hour we'll eat it if you don't die.
So what do you guys think the total addressable market is for humanoid robots?
Well over $50.
Oh,
well over.
Probably some word that I don't even know.
Big global total addressable market.
Quadrillion, or I'm going to use that word.
Yeah,
I don't even know if that's a real thing.
I was listening to a podcast, and this is James's cue to drink, because back in the original Bunker project, he had a drinking game going every time I said I was listening to a podcast. Everybody had to drink.
I'd forgotten about that.
So I was listening to a podcast, and really good AI podcast, and they brought up this Morgan Stanley report, the Humanoid 100, and they got it wrong at first glance, because I'll just switch over here.
Oh, look fancy.
The Humanoid 100. So it's it's showing what the total addressable market is and the complete humanoid robot value chain. Like, they got all the companies, and the companies that are making the brain, the torso, the actuators, and everything like that. But they say that the physical embodiment of AA has a $60 trillion total addressable market worldwide. And then the host of the show said, well, to put that in perspective, the entire world's GDP, or GWP, is $115 trillion. So, and they said to add that to the economy is just going to be transformational. But it's not quite what they mean by this. It wasn't the total addressable market in terms of like increasing and adding value to the economy. because I was listening to another podcast and they talked about their AI wants to take a dent out of the $60 trillion global human labor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. So I went to Notebook LM and I plugged in that study, the Morgan Stanley study, and I started asking questions. And no, they're not talking about adding things. The total addressable market is all of human labor globally. So that's what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes back to Bosco's big questions and the future of work. How are we going to deal with this type thing, right?
Well, it's something we don't have to worry about for next week.
I'm gonna say the terrible words that everybody hates to hear, which is UBI, but that's a very controversial topic.
Well, I hear you can get pills
Universal
for it now.
basic income, which means everybody gets a base pay, but then you're available to do whatever you want and increase that value, but you just get taxed higher.
Well, somebody's got to pay for it.
Which is a weird system.
Well, they're talking about taxing robots, right? So if it takes 15 people away, then that's what the tax is. So it's still going to cost.
Ooh, that's not a bad idea either.
But that's what
so if a company is going to employ robots or any kind of automation using AI, then the government would tax the robot in order to pay for the displaced worker.
Mm-hmm.
So
that they get that money, or who gets that money? Does the government get that money, or the person who's been displaced get that money? I wanted to be an electrician. Well, fuck you, a robot's doing.
That's what the UBI. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
Well, what drives us then as a society? Survival?
Now, the other thing in that Morgan Stanley report, they said that they didn't address it, but they said it in a footnote that they haven't covered what new industries, what new, the productivity gains, what new jobs and everything that could materialize as a result of AI, right?
If things are too expensive to do as a human, I've always worked in companies or done work with companies, and they go, there's no return on investment on that. It's going to cost $100 an hour to pay Craig to do it. We're going to make $80 an hour out of it. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, I'll get Donna, the receptionist, to do it.
So Brad Adcock is the founder of Figure, and he's projecting that once the robots are available on the market, right now they've got them in BMW. They're doing some work. They're kind of beta testing them, and but once they're like out there that you can buy them, they'll probably be priced around $30,000, which means the lease would be about $300, which means the hourly rate that you divide out, if you're running them 24 hours a day, is 40 cents an hour. So
electricity is about to get a lot more expensive.
Yeah. So that's
yeah, you don't have that problem. You have solar. You're like, oh, thank God for the sun. But when we have to shoot nukes at the sun to black out like the solar energy so the robots can't work anymore, what are you going to do now?
We've
seen this movie. It's called The Matrix, right?
Filmed in Sydney. Oh my God.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're so far from everybody else. You just don't have to worry about it. They just forget. They're like, "Whoa, there's Australians." Yeah, they survived.
Well, they keep making inroads on fusion. Right, keeps getting longer and longer, and they're stable. So that's only a matter of time. But also, space-based solar is another.
China just put
up. I haven't seen Elon talk about that, but I think that's.
Yeah, nobody's talking about that. That's crazy.
I think it's part of his plan because you put solar panels and massive solar panels up in geosynchronous orbit, so that they've got access to the sun like 95% of the time, and there's no atmosphere, so you get like full efficiency, and then you can beam it down to a receptor on Earth via laser or microwave. And then you can put it wherever you want. So if there's a shortage of electricity in one area, they can buy the electricity or you put it wherever. So
what if I hate my neighbor and I just want to buy all the electricity? I'm like, fuck those guys.
Oh, I thought you were going to say aim the laser at them.
Well, that was my first thing. Okay, I was first thinking it was like a giant, what happened to Bill? Didn't pay his power bill. It works in both ways. It's like it can give you
And
life and it can take it.
We'll also become far more power sensible, like the M chips that are inside phones and computers these days. And inside we have power supplies inside computers to actually knock it down to 32 volts or knock it down to 12 volts. We have such high amperage and voltage to transmit the power, like to get it to go long distances. When you have like local generation, a lot of people they can just redevelop materials so we don't need huge power resources now.
Like, it's just additional power that kills it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, there's also the modular nuclear reactors too, so that like a lot of the AI companies, Amazon and OpenAI, and I think Google, they're all investing heavily into developing these modular nuclear reactors to just set up mini power stations to power their servers. Another one that I think in Finland, they've got these sand batteries. It's just a big metal like silo basically with a coil that they heat up, and it's full of sand, and they just take renewable energy that is excess. They can't feed it to the grid because they've got too much, so it's just wasted. And they heat up this sand, and the sand can stay 4,000 degrees for weeks or even months. And then it's not very efficient though to convert that back to electricity because there's a lot of heat loss and a lot of energy loss. But what you can do is you can plug the heat directly into a district heating system. And there's a ton of cities around the world that operate district heating systems. So instead of converting it back to electricity, you just pump the heat into buildings. And then that's another way to make energy more efficient too.
Geothermal, yeah.
No, well, that's not geothermal is another one.
Well, yeah.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. New Zealand just pumps water down into the earth because they've got natural hot springs and boiling mud in Rotorua. The mud boils, it's so hot. They just pump water down and put it on a pipe, and it comes up like red hot.
Is it an island?
Yeah,
and it's an island, right?
The temperature difference.
New Zealand as well, the North Island of New Zealand.
Yeah,
they pump cold water down, it comes up red hot, and they take the energy out of it.
Yeah, and they do that in Iceland too because of there's so much volcanic activity there too.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, in BC, we get lots of our power from the dams and all the water we got here, and that's why electricity is crazy, crazy cheap here.
So that's the answer to your question. Where are we going to get the electricity there, James?
I said it was going up. I said the price was going up. I didn't say where are we going to get it. I said how it's going to get more expensive.
So we're going to have to start wrapping up here pretty soon, or we're going to be here all night. Andrew, do you have one last question that we can jump into before we wrap?
I think James had something to say. Did you, James?
Did you have a topic?
Yeah, I did. I posted it in the chat.
What is it?
All right, let's do a quick gaming with James. James. All right, James, what do you got?
So we were talking about AI and we're talking about computers. Currently, there is a battle for supremacy of AI of who can beat Pokemon first. We've got Claude versus Gemini, and they're both competing on Twitch right now. You can go watch it, and they're actually seeing who can finish Pokemon first. Right now, Gemini, last time I read, was on Victory Road, which is very close to beating the game, but Claude was pretty close. I don't like this view, by the way. Not a fan.
How's that? That one better?
No. I like this one better because it's more of a conversation. Like the bunker was always a conversation. It was never like there's people that led conversations, but there's always people making fun of me and shit when we were doing with Gaming and James, giving their own opinions. Bob would go off. I'm not one
crazy.
I'm not one for like the single me having to look at myself.
Let's face it. James is a very shy guy, and he doesn't like to speak up. Let's face it. I mean, he's
never. I don't talk ever.
No, it's so hard to get him going.
But what do you think about that? Who's going to win, Gemini or Claude? Like, which one do you guys think? Or do you have an opinion? Or do you think we should be tasking AI to finish video games to train it?
Save a lot of mankind, I tell you.
Yeah, but it's kind
so
of like
much
the
time.
Taking our jobs. They can't even play video games anymore. They're going to beat the shit out of us at video games.
Yeah, but it's kind of like learning geometry and algebra in school. I mean, you'll never use it, but it built pathways in your brain to make you a better thinker.
Yeah. What was your starter when you played Pokemon, Ken?
Did I play what?
Pokemon.
That's how you get Ken on a bus. Pokemon.
Well, it's a really fun game about managing creatures that you get 5 of them and you have to go fight other people with them. It's about strategy. And
is it based on a cartoon? Didn't they have an interactive one where you go Pokemon hunting by holding out your phone?
Yeah, the Pokemon Go. Yeah,
that was huge.
It was a video game before.
I thought that's what that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you go outside and you swipe left or right, and
But this one's the original Pokemon for Game Boy. For some reason, they keep using that game over and over again as a way with AI to.
But wasn't it a card game before that?
Oh, it's beat all sorts of games.
Yeah, I think it started as a card game, and they put out a cartoon. They wanted to teach you to play the card game, so you'd buy more card games, and then the cartoon took off. And then
you collect all the cards, and there's a whole system.
There was only 101 back then. I think there's something like 700 plus now.
My son-in-law actually used to have a business, like a card trader. He made thousands out of it.
Wow.
Logan Paul bought one, I think, for like $5 million and wore it when he was walking.
And then he lost it on the bus.
No. I think Post Malone also buys Pokemon cards. So I think Gemini is going to win if I had to put my money on it because it's pretty close to, beating it. But Claude's, it's also interesting because people are like, well, it's just doing the optimal strategy. That's bullshit. Because that's usually how
Gemini is the highest rated performing AI right now, right?
Currently, yeah. And they did kind of start this. I mean, one of my favorite movies is about AlphaGo, where it beat the, Korean Grandmaster of Go. So if you haven't watched that, that was like 10 years ago. So
it'll be square format.
It is actually. Yeah, you're right. It's it's going to be on Pluto TV and 4x3. Yeah.
That was a thing. I mean, that's something you can tell millennials and they don't believe you. It's like, no, we didn't have the shape when we were young. We had the square shape. Like,
did you say millennials? You mean Gen Z? I'm a millennial. I'm the eldest millennial.
Are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't keep up with all these letters.
Like your kids are Gen Z.
No, I think they're next level up. What's the next one?
Alpha.
Why?
My girls are Alpha.
Oh yeah, that's right. Gen Z is just
Generation Alpha, and Mateo's the one before that. I'm trying to remember what it was.
And then what happens? 35. I have no idea what they are.
Yeah,
artistic.
Gen X is the best.
Gen X is the best. I have no problems with you guys. Nobody should come for Gen X, just like all those memes say.
So will it go around again to start with Gen A? And then
I don't know. I'm not a biologist or whatever the guys that named that stuff is called.
Demographer, maybe?
Demographer, yeah. It's really just 3 dudes in their basement get really stoned and go, what do we call the next one? Well, we got 10 years. Don't worry. We'll come up with something. Boomers. Yeah. What do we call us? We just had a war. We're the greatest. What do we call our parents? Well, they didn't really say much.
I find that hilarious because the boomer over here is a kangaroo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had that song for us. What was it? For Christmas, I think.
6 white boomers.
Yeah, because they have Christmas in the summer. You guys do stuff so weird, man. Why didn't you have it in the winter?
Around here, we've had a lot of development lately, so we have dislodged a lot of kangaroos. So it is a bit like the bullshit story you hear. You'll go to catch a bus or a train, and a kangaroo will go past.
Can you get it on video of them fighting?
Oh, no. But there is a few where they're
pretty strong, man.
Over. Oh, they're big. But they do make that doof, doof, doof as they go past. The tail just hits the ground to keep them balanced.
At least you can hear them, though, in Australia.
I didn't realize there were
things that you can't.
Yeah, but the electric ones, you can't hear them at all.
The AI ones.
Those robotic ones, very sneaky. Very sneaky.
I didn't realize they were so muscular.
Oh, yeah. It's like a moose.
Yeah.
Never go up against a moose.
Looks like
especially
Arnold.
like they call them like inland reds, and the ones from Queensland are really big. Around here we have like grey kangaroos, which aren't as big. They might be 5 foot something, but you're still
Only 5 foot something. Yeah.
They'll still like take your car out if you run into one. Like, they're not a small creature.
Yeah, well, they're like a bouncing tripod, man. They're pretty stable. I've got to run, guys. Sorry. And then Andrew and I'll come up with some sort of plan to organize the next one and come up with a topic. You guys can send in topics beforehand. That would be great.
Yeah. So why don't we just close it off right now then? Since you're leaving, we'll get you to start and just say what you've been working on and what you're doing, and then we'll just go around the room here.
Oh, like the last 3 days, I've been screaming at ChatGPT to do basic stuff. It was a relatively simple question, I thought, but no, it has to do it the hard way. But anyways, I'm trying to put together a database of science fiction novels. And the thing with ChatGPT, it's very happy to give you more suggestions. And he said, oh, would you want to do that? I said, yeah, I'll throw that in. What the hell? And then you build something so complex when you're using it. It's like, oh, it's going to take 5 minutes. And then 3.5 days later, it's done. So that's what I'm working on right now.
So he sent that over to my son, who's like an avid reader.
It's only 100 books, yeah.
And he's like looking at it. And then all of a sudden he's like, what the hell? There's like 4 tabs on this spreadsheet. And so there's like all these books and he's like scrolling down. How many are there? And then he's like, then he realized there's tabs and then there's even more.
Yeah, it's thousands and thousands of books.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, he'll be busy for at least 10 years, I've calculated. Because like one book a month, a week.
Yeah, during Global Game Jam, they said they made, I think, about 8,000 games this year. You'd never be able to play that many games in your lifetime.
Hey, James, what have you been doing?
You
did you doing training or something? I thought you were doing something else.
No, I did say I got my pyrotechnics license.
Yeah. So you're blowing things up. Great.
Yeah. No, I'm interested in that. Well, by that, you mean like for performances and stuff like that, not just general stuff. we should be, yeah, exactly. Yeah. James Karg, again, back on the watch list. I mean, I already get the one. They got to put me like this when I go through it. Thanks. But I got my pyrotechnics certificate. Coding and teaching people, pretty much. I guess that's what I'm up to.
Are you doing it remotely?
I teach it remotely.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So it's injured workers. You're teaching them computing skills and stuff like that to get them back.
Well, it could be anybody, but that is primarily who I work with. So teaching your racist Uncle Bob how to get on Facebook.
Exactly.
Perfect.
What the hell's this thing?
What is this? They're taking our jobs, these goddamn robots. Yeah.
Oh, a speciesist, you mean? They're speciesists.
I don't know. I just tell people how to use a computer however they want to use it. It's up to them.
Well, Ken's doing that.
Right.
Too.
So that's really, because it's like you unleash somebody on the internet. You're not responsible from them, are you?
Well, not unless you're getting paid.
You think parents should be helping teach their kids about media literacy and the internet? And that's fucking crazy. Why would we do that?
Ken, what are you doing? Because it kind of mirrors what James is doing in a weird way.
Yeah, still doing a lot of teaching at a post-secondary institute, BCIT, teaching sound and sound design. But kind of on a more, I think, important level is I'm teaching seniors how to use technology at one of the local volunteer outfits, and just simple things: how to use a phone, how to use a computer, and we have a free drop-in as well. And they come in. Oh, my phone doesn't do this. My computer. Well, how come Gmail is acting like this? And they just sit down for a couple of minutes. We solve the problem, and off they go. And I'm actually quite proud of the kind of work that we're doing.
I should mention, in case my employer is listening, that by no means am I an affiliate of my employer or any other sort of affiliation, but they do good work because they employ me.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be nice because they give me money.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we do good work. It does get repetitive. I'm sure that you kind of face the same thing where you get the same questions over and over, and you're like, there's this magical thing called search engine.
Well, yeah, but you see, the thing is that for a lot of the seniors, they'll come in every week and still ask the same question.
Yeah.
So, it can be a little odd at times.
Well, I think it's a social interaction too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you get your robot dog,
True. Yeah.
it can help you with your Gmail too.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Man, I'm out of a job too. Fuck.
Greg, what are you up to?
My daughter's the creative at Apple, and like Ken said, she does like she says people stand up and go like classes and Apple stores, right? So she's a creative.
Oh, cool.
She says she has the regulars. Like Marie will be in every Saturday morning to get this week's lesson on. Okay, I've learned how to use my email, and I can make a phone call. So what else can you show me about my phone? And it's like, look, you can have screens full of apps. Bugger me, I can have more than 6. Yes, you can.
It's magic.
Next week it'll be in like, now what else can you show me, Kayla?
Yeah, and then you go see in their search bar, and it's like boobs, big bums. And you're like, okay, it's your personal device. I get it. I get it. Just don't connect to the company Wi-Fi and look at that website, Jeff.
Actually, if you use Opera, you don't have to follow that. You can. It scrubs your history.
Oh, that's good information. If you are using a Mac computer, all of the searches that you ever wanted to start with. This is why you got to be careful with ChatGPT and its memory now, because it might have some of your previous first questions, and so maybe in the future, your family member may be like, "What was the first thing that my ancestor said on ChatGPT?"
Exactly.
You can delete those chats though.
It actually gets a bit snarky too, ChatGPT.
Yeah, but it doesn't really it deletes it from the memory, but it's still
they still have it. They still have it.
Yeah, it never. Nothing.
I can't see it.
Data never disappears. Come on.
Later, it gets like.
So, Craig, what are you doing around now? You're writing. You said earlier, playing guitar.
That's for me. I write and play guitar, but to make a bit of cash. Got many things, and so I can't say who. Because they're going to go, you're endorsing us, or you can't tell people that's not our opinion. Yeah, actually, whatever. But we did a thing. If anyone wants to get into sort of like learning a little bit of machine learning and then get into AI, there is a Python library called NLTK. It's natural language processing, right? So and basically what AI does too, it tokenizes things. It takes out words, sentences, and breaks them into tokens, and builds matrices on that. So what we used that NLTK and gave it like 30 sentences that described fraud, and then pointed it at like 1 million call center transactions. And it came back in a few hours and went, here's all the things where people were talking about fraud, but they didn't know they were talking about fraud.
Oh, geez.
So we started reading them. And went, we've got to teach it a little bit differently, because it's actually finding contract disputes as well. Like, I paid for this, he never gave me that. It says so in the documents, so it was a contract dispute. So I was like, that's not really fraud, but it was getting really good. And we've also done a little bit around that.
It's a kind of fraud if you were to go into the classic sense of it. Like,
it could go
it's only been fed this information that doesn't have all these intricacies.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we just had to teach it more, but we only had to give it 30 sentences, right? And what it did, it took 10 to one side, taught itself off 20, then read those 10 and said, would we have agreed with the human that wrote those? Oh, we did. So we're now learnt. And then it went and attacked, right? But it kept going, no, I wouldn't have saw that. And it randomized those 10 every time until it went directed learning. Good, I now know enough, and it could go. But they also did some stuff around like fines. You get a parking fine or whatever. Why chase a guy who's virtually homeless? So they started teaching it how to recognize people to chase. Like, this guy owes fines, you're never going to get the money off him. Just cancel his driver's license and leave him alone. That's enough. And they do that, and their recoveries have gone right up, rather than have this huge amount that they're spending money on that they're never going to get.
Yeah.
Right. So they're spending money.
Allocation of resource, right? It's classic.
And
classic.
we're doing a bit of that sort of stuff at the moment.
Cool. Very cool.
And I'll talk to all you guys individually because we have a quarterly thing called the Advanced Analytics Group. And we talk about AI and machine learning and how people apply it. Nice. So I'll talk to you guys later on and see if you guys want to pop in and have a talk to the group. It's about 100 people per quarter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll show up anywhere, but as long as I get a stipend to buy beer here in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Just ship me the beer. I would prefer the beer.
Like he's old. That's how we know Craig Griffiths, right? You were one of the only person to ever send a gift to the host.
The only person ever stupid enough to send beer to a pub, yeah.
I think that's pretty cool, though.
It was pretty hilarious when we opened it up, man. It was, I cannot believe this. Those crazy Australians, man. Okay, Andrew, what have you been up to?
I've been doing the Daily Quote podcast now.
Yeah, awesome stuff.
481 episodes, I guess, now.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a daily quote every day. And I've also got the Great News podcast, which I kind of started it and then I didn't like it. So I stopped and then I started the Daily Quote again. And then I just started doing the Great News podcast again. So,
what is that?
It's pretty cool, actually.
It's a good news show. So just anything to do, any news that is, breaking technology that's good for humanity, renewable energy, medical breakthroughs, anything like that.
Where can I sign up to listen to this insightful show?
Tell us more.
Well, funny you asked. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts.
And what are these devices? How do you use them? Can I get it on my phone?
Yeah, can I get it on my phone? Big boob. No, sorry, I got to pay attention here.
I forgot to send it to people's phones. Forgot about that.
Oh well. All right.
Oh, but if you have a podcast app on your phone, then you can get it that way.
Yeah, for sure you can. Or you just go to the website and listen to it. Right.
I think I'm going to feature your quote, Ken. If
Which
you don't
one
mind.
is that?
I know he's a writer. I charge you for it, man.
You gave us a quote.
Yeah, I gave you a couple of quotes. I can't remember which
that you came up with. There was one. It was. I wrote it down. I got it in my notes, but it was.
I strive every day to be genuinely happy at the good fortune of others.
Wow, it's very Canadian.
You strive every day to be genuinely happy.
Be genuinely happy at the good fortune of others.
Yeah,
that's very good.
The Canadian motto.
So now, my question on that quote is, because you could look at that two different ways.
I mean it the way you think.
No. You strive to be genuinely happy because if you're happy, you'll be better for other people.
It benefits me.
Exactly.
And then if you strive to be generally happy for what happens to other people.
Yes. On their behalf.
What if you don't like those people though?
I don't care.
Still be happy for
You're happy for those other people?
I can still be
happy you didn't have to talk to them.
Well, I mean, it does depend on, there is an element of right and wrong in there as well. I mean, I would never be genuinely happy at the good fortune of Donald Trump.
I was just going to bring that up. I
would never be happy about that. But the good fortune of others. I'm talking about sort of normal people, not a criminal rapist.
You just had to get it in there, didn't you? Politicizing the show, man. Just talking to the lawyers tomorrow.
We had a right-wingy party down here, and they were pushing they were after a hook.
I'm going to use that from now on, by the way. The way you said that. Anytime I talk about it, I'm right-wingy. All right? Yeah. He's just the guy's a bit off. He's a little right-wingy.
Yeah, a bit right-wingy. And they were like, we've got to stop wage growth. It's the only way we're going to control it. And that was a thing going forward.
Wow.
Wage growth to get things back. And they were looking for a slogan. So my son did up this beautiful artwork of their logo, and underneath just said, slavery gets shit done.
Oh, actually, it's true. It is true.
And they're like, no.
I mean, if we want to move it into a different direction there, there's the quote that says, we took the children out of the mines and then we gave them a game called Minecraft. And the kids absolutely love it. The children yearn for the mines. right? So I don't know. Maybe they had something going. We all are part of wage slavery, anyways.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
Oh, there was another quote as well. I just popped into my brain that I gave to Andrew. The smarter I get, the stupider I am.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's words.
The smarter you get, the less you know, for sure.
Yeah.
I like. Okay, if we're gonna cut it off at around this point, can I leave with a quote that I love?
Absolutely. This quote,
which is since we're talking about computers and robots, it is a computer once beat me at chess, but it was no match for me in kickboxing. And that was from Emo Phillips. But I mean, if they get to be Andrew McGovern size, well, all bets are off.
Yeah. Well, a Tesla bot maybe you wouldn't be able to beat it in kickboxing, but
that's kind of scary to think of.
Or an Atlas.
Yeah, the Atlas would like jump over your back and like snap your neck within like 5 seconds.
I thought you guys were talking about the book. I was saying an Atlas. What the hell?
Atlas Shrugged. I mean, it kind of.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Atlas? The new Atlas, the new slimmer Atlas?
Oh, Atlas.
My goodness.
The Figma or Figure, Andrew's mentioned them a couple times. They've got the crazy robots where it's like, put it in the trash, and it's like, okay. So,
yeah.
And it doesn't crush stuff. And even that bionic lady, she didn't just smash the glass with her.
He said they're getting them into warehouses and businesses right now, but he said that it's super complicated to perfect the robot for home use because you have to make sure it's not going to tip over and fall on a baby or something, or tip over a candle and burn the house down.
Or lock you out.
It has to be hyper aware of everything.
Oh yeah, think about that. Could you imagine like you program the robot to kick you out because your landlord takes control of it and locks all the doors? Jesus.
Have you seen the video with the guy with the hockey stick and Atlas picks up the box and he kicks
that's from 2016.
Yeah, that's
I love
a long
that one.
time ago.
Yeah.
Kevin was the guy.
What are you, fucking Gretzky? It's called Robot Swearing. If anybody wants to actually go look up that old ass YouTube video.
It is very funny.
Somebody just overdubbed the commercial with fucking voices.
So Hyundai owns Boston Dynamics now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hyundai.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that because they make everything Hyundai, like in their own production chain, from their own PCs through their factories. They even own the ships that transport their cars.
They have massive.
Well, they're using robots in their manufacturing. Yeah. So
what's the one that carries ships? There's like some massive thing they have that can actually unload the ship. These things.
The ships inside the ship.
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
What's the one that transforms into a truck?
Optimus Prime?
That's it. Yeah.
No, Optimus Truck.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. We were talking about, should it be robot form or should it be like a regular form? I was thinking like maybe what's going to happen is people will be able to customize your robot. So Andrew maybe wants a truck robot, so he gets that. Craig wants a kangaroo that he can also operate. And then maybe Ken wants one with big speakers on it, like Soundwave.
Dude, yeah, I'm in.
You know, depends on the function you want. Maybe Bob's going to roll around in a forklift robot, and that's the one he has.
Actually, I would definitely buy that for sure.
Yeah.
Take me to the supermarket. I feel like buying something heavy.
Yeah, it gets like a giant cow catcher on the front of it. You'd love that. You'd be like, get out of my way.
Okay, Andrew. Time to wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming on the show. It was awesome as usual.
Yeah, good time.
Yeah, it was
we'll try and do it again.
Good to see you, Craig. It's been like 10 years or something.
I see you on Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We bump into each other. Same as Baby James. But
Baby James? I was a baby. Yeah.
I was back in the Bunker days. He goes, I don't drink. I'm like, you're in the wrong place.
Still a baby. Yeah, you're right. It's insane.
Yeah, Australia's a place you get pulled over without being drunk. Yeah, your blood, you just don't have enough brew in you, dude.
Somebody called me. What are you doing? Time from Australia. They're like, you're a bit of a bogan. I was like, what is that? And then they explained it to me. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty much a bit of a bogan.
Good stuff.
They have such great words in all these other countries. I mean, we should, stop being all right-wingy.
Nuts.
All
Okay.
right. So
It's bedtime over here.
Yeah. Hey, so Andrew, you going to wrap and put on the show's music, or what are you going to do?
okay, I can do that. I was going to do that in post-production, but
Come
Oh, I was confused. It
Whisper a
still says
little,
recording,
whisper.
and I can't say anything that I wouldn't normally say.
We'll just bleep you out. God, this show has all got bleeps on it. That's all.
Bunker Project. Bunker Project
Have
is
to bleep it
available in your favorite podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, and all the other places. Yes, we're right-wingy. We're on Rumble.
And left wingy. And center wingy.
Exactly.
And
But we're not on
bottom
Truth
wingy.
Social. We'll never
Let's
be
face
on.
it, we're just winging it.
Stop wingy.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. It was a blast. It was a blast.
Everyone.
And we're out.